Hello, everybody. Welcome to the YouTube and the Twitch. I'm Patrick Daugherty. This is Kyle Dvorchak. We're going to be talking waivers and all your week 2 questions. The waivers is kind of the hook for the show, Kyle, but I mean, we're going to talk basically whatever anyone wants to talk. And I can't tell if Kyle can hear me. Appears he's muted. I'm going to keep filibustering. And, Kyle, remember where do the questions come in, by the way? Here under comments, I believe, correct?
Yeah, they'll come in our comments as we get people filtering in. How'd week 1 go for you? My first game wasn't good that you assigned me, and I thought I was going to get a good one. It felt like Browns Bengals should have been like Joe Burrow. That's very obvious. And I thought we were going to get a better version of Sean Watson. We technically did, but it was still fairly unappealing. Then my second game was Rams Seahawks, and that was bad fun. The Rams just torched the Seahawks, but fun. That was at least fun.
Yeah, when I gave you Browns Bengals, I thought I was giving you a reward basically. There was only one good game on the early slate between potentially 2 good teams. Give this one to Kyle because I think you didn't have a particularly great second game. I'll give him a good game. You can at least enjoy the 1 p.m. Eastern hour, and then instead you got the worst game of all time? ? I looked it up because I called it an Andy Dalton special. Even Andy Dalton had never thrown for fewer than 90 yards on more than 30 attempts. I think he threw for 92 yards on 33 attempts one time. So he had 2 more attempts than Burrow had yesterday. I think Burrow was 82 on 31.
I was going to say, honestly, just the raw yards at this point. I give him 40 more attempts if it means he gets over 100 yards because it was brutal. You gave yourself quite a horrific game with Cardinals Commanders. What other game did you have?
Cardinals Commanders, and let me think about that. 49ers Steelers. And that one, to be honest, so the real reason I gave myself 49ers Steelers is I was pretty interested. I wanted to see how the Brock Purdy show began, the post elbow show. I thought maybe it'd be one of those weird games, the classic narrative of the West Coast team road tripping to the East Coast for the 1 p.m. Eastern game. They're going to be sleepy. The Steelers were the summer hype all-stars. I thought maybe it was a game that could go kind of haywire, and it did. Just not at all in the way I was expecting, and the 49ers mercilessly beat them down, Kyle. So yeah, folks, if you got questions, have them coming in. I think I know where they appear, Kyle. They just appear here under comments, correct?
You'll see them there. You and Denny were right about Bucs Vikings, right? Wasn't that a thing
we were
all over?
we were all over that all week on the podcast last week, and that was truly just vibes based. But so my vibes based take on that was the Bucs are going back to being all defense, all fire and brimstone, they're all about winning ugly, never passing more than 30 times again. And Todd Bowles had been dialed in on Kirk Cousins for an entire month. It just seemed like a classic game that was bound to go sloppy, that was bound to go series to series and just be a hand-to-hand combat basically. And I knew that was not good for Kirk Cousins. And although Kirk Cousins still 330 yards and 44 attempts, it was the most classic Kirk Cousins stat line ever, where you pull up his box score, it didn't look that bad if you didn't see the 2 lost fumbles. How did the Vikings lose this game? Kind of Kirk
Didn't
Cousins
he throw at least 1 interception too?
He threw 1 pick and lost 2 fumbles. I believe all 3 turnovers maybe in the first half. So too, by the way, while we're talking, let's just get the big question out of the way. Which Ravens running back are you prioritizing on the waiver wire? Because it was very weird. Justice Hill kind of getting the goal line preference. I didn't have any targets either, but was playing a lot of third downs. Neither Justice Hill nor Gus Edwards really got many touches in a really bizarre game. Who are you prioritizing on the waiver wire between Justice Hill and Gus Edwards?
Yeah, to me, it's Justice. I think before seeing the preseason in which Justice primarily played ahead of Gus and before seeing week 1, I would have pretty confidently said Gus in the sense of he's been a really efficient between the tackles runner ever since entering the league. 5-point-something yards per carry year after year after year. But I'm not going to fly in the face of what the team is clearly showing us. in that Justice was playing ahead of him in the preseason. Justice played ahead of him in this game. He got more goal line work in this game. And it looked like J.K. Dobbins was going to get some passing downs work. He got 3 targets and a fourth, I believe, negated by a penalty in just 3 quarters of play. That role clearly is not falling to Gus. Like four targets in a single game is something he's never done and will never do. It's something he almost never does in a season. He is a pure 2-down guy, and he's really good at that, I think, at least. But if we're looking for goal line work, Justice got it. If we're looking for passing down work, Justice has that skill set. Really, the only concern for me with Justice is if we get Melvin Gordon entering the mix, who I don't know if they cut and then put on their practice squad or if he
did.
That's what happened, right? But then Harbaugh today said, like, there's a reason he's on this team. I was like, he's kind of technically on the team, but that's even a stretch to say. But they're going to make him active. I guess call him up, make him active.
He's guaranteed to be promoted, yes, ahead of week 2.
Exactly. So that's the concern, but it's a concern for both of them. So I'll take the one who I think has a significantly better role, at least. So for me, it's Justice, and it's not super close. You're stashing Gus, though. I still think he's worth a stash.
You just answered the Dapper Pickles question about, well, who is your priority running back ad, like writ large for the entire league?
I was going to say it's Kyren. It's very easily Kyren. Kenneth Gainwell is out there in over half of Yahoo leagues, which makes no sense. It's just over half. It's like 54%. But if you would have told me to guess, I'd have been like 65, 70. So I still think Kyren's frankly a better pickup because
I do too.
Probably getting more running back targets. And even though the Eagles' offense is better, they also have a clear goal line back at quarterback. So they're going to get in the red zone a lot. They're going to give their running backs red zone touches. But the cut of the pie is much smaller for the running backs, where at least the pie is larger, the cut's smaller. The Rams are the inverse of that. They're not going to score as many times, I don't think, at least. I guess last week would say this isn't true. I don't think they're going to score as often, make as many red zone trips as the Eagles, but it's all going to be the running backs. Matthew Stafford is not taking this stuff away. So to me, it's Kyren. And apparently Kenneth Gainwell's out there in a lot of leagues. But, Dapper Pickle. Next comment. I am, as someone who my only FFPC main event, like, I think they're like $1,200, $1,400 buy-in something that I split with a few people. Only one we got, or only one I got was DeAndre Swift team. We're not playing this dude next week. He got like 1 carry and one target.
No. It is weird. I do think
it's just not happening.
He's done. I think it was a fluke. I mean, 18-2 or whatever is a fluke. And there's classic Kenneth Gainwell, where I wrote in my article, he does the little things well, but he also posts little gains. He's not explosive. He's kind of like, honestly, like Jamal Williams. He's like Jamal Williams, kind of, where the coaching staffs love him. They love they can put him out there in important snaps, and he's not going to make a mistake.
I think he's good Jamal Williams, like fine Jamal Williams. Because, man, dude, as someone who played Jamal Williams in DFS last weekend, oh, buddy, Jamal Williams is not Jamal Williams anymore.
No, he's done. But I don't think 18-2 is going to happen again. But obviously, DeAndre. So everyone knows you don't want to overreact to week 1. But a clear reaction to week 1 is cannot rank DeAndre Swift as if he is startable and redraft fantasy.
Exactly. You can hold on to him for a roster spot. That is, I'm not cutting him in my main event team. I might cut him next week though. Like we're one more week away of this.
And Kyren Williams, the Rams have been building towards Kyren for like a long time. They
wanted to make him a thing last year, and he like broke his wrist or thumb on like a special team snap on that Thursday night game versus Buffalo when
week 1, and they talked him up for basically 2 straight years, and his touch dominance wasn't quite reflected in the final stat lines. Where I think someone told me, I can't remember on our podcast, I think like 14 of Cam Akers carries like came on the final 2 or 3 series or something. It was horrifying.
11 on the final 2.
Yeah, that's
came
nuts.
On the final 2 series. They were up 27 to either 10 or 13. I think it was 13. 27 to 13 for these drives, and he gained like 9 yards on these. Or I think it was 13 yards on these 11 carries, completely salting it away. That was fictitious to say the least.
Yeah. So Kyren Williams like dominated all the snaps and touches that actually mattered. I mean, Cam Akers was mixed in a little, but I think like this was like Sean McVay like finally getting the backfield the way he went. And Cam Akers has gotten like chance after chance after chance, and he did finally look good. Like the final 3 games last season, where it looked like maybe he was back, but running in very obvious rushing situations yesterday. But yikes, the box score It kind of lies, but can it really lie if you get 22 carries and you get under 30 yards? I don't know.
Yeah, even the first 11 carries, which were not nearly as obvious, like let's grind this dude to dust. He wasn't like breaking long runs on those. It was just a little more advantageous spots. Kyron still looked better. Kyron still ran a vast majority of the routes, played on third downs. And even though Akers is like, he's the grind out, you ask for 2 yards, he'll get you 2. You ask for 3, he'll probably get you 1. Even though he is that guy, they were still splitting goal line reps too. So Kyron has a good chunk, not all, but a good chunk of the goal line work and all of the passing downs work. Let Akers take carries at the 50-yard line on 2nd and 2. Have it.
We have a question from Julio Villa. He has James Conner. Guy said, Conner for Javonte in a trade. Would you do it full PPR? I watched James Conner's game yesterday. He was the only confident Arizona Cardinal on the field, essentially. Javonte Williams, I'd say his touch count was a little higher than I was expecting. I was expecting a little more shenanigans from Sean Payton, but he was the dominant presence in that Broncos backfield. But a really bad offense in the Cardinals, still kind of a questionable backfield in the Broncos, Kyle. What do we tell Julio about the trade?
Give me Javonte. I take Javonte over James Conner. I think you're probably giving up a few early season points. Like what? Conner caught like 5 or 6 passes, something like that.
But for 8 yards.
Exactly. And he ran a respectable like 4.5 yards a clip on 14 carries, if I remember correctly. But like that tells you all you need to know. Like they're not picking up yards in the passing game. They're not getting him in the red zone. He is very empty calorie outside of like PPR points are very easy to come by. Even his 5 catches for 8 yards contributed absolutely nothing. We're almost certainly a net negative on those plays. And they're almost 6 PPR points. It's almost a touchdown. So.
And two with Conner, like it might sound weird to say, but yesterday was honestly almost a best case scenario for Conner. I think it was 14 carries for 62 yards. Like the Cardinals somehow kept this a 1-score game the entire game. And they never got in like what you would call comeback game script or like garbage time game script, hurry up game script. They were in run friendly game script for 60 minutes, which just is not going to happen very often because their defense was admirable, like basically a heroic effort, you could say, from the Cardinals defense against Sam Howell and the Commanders. But I mean, they're going to be down 2 scores in the first half quite frequently. And then James Conner's not going to have volume on the ground. I guess maybe he could catch 6 to 7 passes a week. That actually is a somewhat plausible outcome. The super low touchdown odds. I think a lot of weeks he's going to struggle to get even like 12 carries. So James Conner, I feel I would maybe cash in James Conner after that.
It does feel like we got paid off. This is just a funny Javonte comment. We got paid off on you take a James Conner type of running back to say I'm banking touches, but like it's clear that these touches are not valueless, but very low value. You've already hit the sort of outcome that boosts his value. Cash it in. And no, I didn't watch the Broncos game. I assume it was horrific. Like, are they just dust?
I don't know. I didn't see it either. Mark Garcia, I believe, saw it and talked about it on our podcast where he said some of the old Russ was back. Like he was actually, Sean Payton was getting him on the move and putting him in like more advantageous passing situations, kind of letting him do some of those crazy Russ outside the pocket type passes. He
did throw a pair of touchdowns. If you told me he threw multiple touchdowns, like what's the line on multiple touchdown games from Russ last year? Like
infrequent,
3.5.
The supporting cast, they need Jerry Jeudy back. Super bad. They need some element.
They should play Marvin Mims. Have they thought of that?
They should. They really, really need Jerry Jeudy back to make life easier for the rest of this. Tell Germs, by the way, why Puka is not on fraud watch. 15. I can't remember whose tweet it was. Maybe Scott Barrett. 15 targets, the most ever in a rookie's first game since 2000. So crazy usage. We know Cooper Kupp is coming back, but I know you do not think Puka is on fraud watch. Explain why Puka is not on fraud watch.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't even that much of a fan of his prospect profile. He was like a late breakout type of player who transferred. Typically, those guys have inflated production, and he did in terms of his early career production was essentially nothing. I believe it was at LSU, if I remember correctly, and then transferred to, where was it, BYU or Utah State or something? One of those Western schools.
Might have been UCLA. We're looking into it very powerfully.
He wasn't UCLA. He was I think he was BYU, if I remember correctly.
We're going to look into it very powerfully.
He was extremely efficient once he actually got on the field for a college football program. He was averaging like well over 3 yards per route run, which is nuts. Like that's something that even if you're an upperclassman, I'm still going to give you a lot of credit for. He was also like very multifaceted. He moved inside, outside. He had like 300 some rushing yards and 5 rushing touchdowns in his peak rushing season. Like there was a lot to make you want to look past his middling, like late breakout. Late breakout is a pretty big red flag for a college player. There's a lot of reason to look past that. And if you just give him credit for, it turns out that, LSU missed something. He actually is as good as his late career stats say. This would line up with that well, in that he immediately enters the NFL and looks as good as he did and as an upperclassman in college. And guys in the NFL, especially at receiver, who get on the field, get targeted early, let alone record-setting levels of targets for a rookie, those guys are relatively sticky. Early career production for receivers is a strong indicator. I get it's one game, so I don't want to say he's had half a season of production already. But what is the alternative? Is it more Tutu Atwell 164-pound targets? Van Jefferson just ain't it. Tyler Higbee isn't either. I think he's easily the best bet here. Sure, 15 targets isn't happening again. I definitely think he's coming back to earth. But are we pretty easily banking wide receiver 2-3 fantasy numbers until Cooper Kupp comes back? To me, that feels fairly easy to say.
Yeah, I think he could pretty easily be in at least the wide receiver 30 to 36 range the next 3 weeks, which is the minimum Cooper Kupp has to miss. I know you think Tutu Atwell is also worth an ad. I actually think Tutu Atwell is worth an ad too. He's being used very close to the line of scrimmage, I believe, yesterday, but he can do damage down the field. He did do that occasionally last year. Kind of just a very interesting player who it took a while, but has grown into this role. And I mean, kind of similar to Rashid Shaheed, where he finished the year kind of a big play bender last year, relatively speaking, of course. And then was just kind of in line for volume to begin the year. And it was just kind of both there yesterday. Why do you think, though, Tutu Atwell is also worth it? And again, this could be very ephemeral. And we're not really, Tutu Atwell is not going to be more than a wide receiver 4. But why do we think Tutu Atwell is worth an ad off the waiver wire?
Yeah, I mean, you look at his college profile and it looks like a truly elite player. He had a 40% dominator at Louisville, a Power 5 school when he was there. He enters the NFL and just they cannot find a role for him. He was overdrafted. I do think at his size, you have to think there's a specific role he can play. And that role is not a second round pick on him. It's not that. So I think it's one of those players where he's overdrafted. We all think he's going to fail. He fails, and he's completely written off. But there was a lot to like about his college profile, elite production. I think he had over 1,300 yards from scrimmage as a true sophomore. That is very strong production. Now we saw flashes of it last year. We're seeing it full time this year, and he ran nearly all the routes. They were scheming, like you said, it was scheme touches in a way, which is a problem in that I don't know that it scales. I don't think you're going to have to ask for it to scale. You're okay with saying he's going to be schemed 7 to 8 targets in the absence of Cooper Kupp. And I think he is the one who takes a hit when Cooper Kupp is gone. You're not scheming Tutu Atwell touches when you have Cooper Kupp back, and you probably are just comfortable with Puka Nacua. He can do some more traditional receiver stuff. So I think Tutu Atwell is worth a short-term ad. I think he's the one who gets pushed more when Cooper Kupp comes back. So he's more of the rental type of player. We're
going to get a pretty quick test for how real this Rams revived offense is in week 2 when they play the San Francisco 49ers. So order of magnitude greater than the Seahawks were. But would this mythify, would you trade Lamar and Chubb for Hurts and Jacobs? This feels kind of a lateral trade. But, I mean, I would say Hurts is the best overall player in the deal. I mean, he's not the most valuable in terms of ADP and draft capital. Is the different – I mean, it's Lamar and Hurts are so similar. Chubb and Jacobs are so similar. What do you say here? I think if side 2 is maybe slightly steadier, but I can see an argument for side 1.
Yeah, give me side 2 as well. Jacobs basically is doing the exact same thing he did last year. He just wasn't as efficient and didn't score touchdowns in week 1, but the role it really does appear close to unchanged. And Hurts is to me still a far superior fantasy play than Lamar. They could even out, but I'm much more confident that Hurts is better than Lamar than I am the differential between Jacobs and Chubb. So second side, but like you said, it's fairly lateral.
So I'm throwing these questions at you. You're allowed to choose the questions too, as you have been doing. But we were just talking about Puka for a while. What percentage of your fab would you throw Puka? It's weird because a lot of times you want this to be for running backs, but running backs come available more frequently since they're more of a 1-for-1 replacement when a guy gets hurt. It's very rare, really, for an impact receiver to become available, and it really only happens early in the season. I think we kind of think Puka, and Puka didn't come totally out of nowhere. He was steamed a little bit in the summer too. It is a risky proposition, though. One game seemed kind of fluke game script, blah blah blah. What percentage of your fab budget would you invest in Puka Nacua?
On that FFPC main event team, we are investing. Hopefully, no one's watching. I'll say it's north of 40%. It is comfortably north of 40%. Like you said, I think
that's what's going to take to get him too.
Yeah, I think the point you made is exactly what, I was essentially talked into. I saw we have good receivers. So I was like, oh, we don't really like need another receiver. But I think you made like the strongest point is that like you can't just buy breakout receivers. It's so rare. Like we kind of have a relatively solid gauge of receiver talent, and running back is opportunity driven. If a receiver is really talented, he's probably rostered. In this case, we probably missed on the talent level of Puka Nacua in the absence, especially of Cooper Kupp. They don't just like breakout receivers don't just grow on trees. They're mostly all rostered already. If you're waiting to spend your money on a more sure thing, you're doing the like, what's in the box? It could be anything, even a boat. Like this could be, if I save my money, I could get anything, even a breakout receiver. Like we're getting our chance now, I think, and you don't get those as often. If you're really needy at running back, which teams are going to be, I could see foregoing it or putting a more modest like 30% bid and trying to get Kyren or Gainwell, but holding positional value or utility to your team equal, like you could bid north of 50%. I'd be like, that's reasonable.
I didn't quite see the running back killer app out there this week. I don't know. I mean, Kyren maybe kind of comes close.
I think Kyren's in that range.
Much more so than the Ravens running backs.
Yeah, I'm confident in Kyren being a very strong pickup. Do I think he's a league winner? I think it's possible. I'm not confident in that. I'm skeptical of what the Ravens are going to do. Like if Melvin Gordon gets 30% of the snaps,
Melvin Gordon could very easily lead the backfield this weekend.
Absolutely.
Just Puka. Now it might not necessarily be a wise investment. It could end up backfiring horribly, but to win Puka, I think it's going to take north of 40% probably. Maybe some leagues, if it's like a little more of an amateur home league, people might be kind of scared. They could be more emboldened. And you could maybe get them for 33%. But I think it might not end up being wise, but I think to win Puka, you got to go north of 40%. Just real quick, let's put a number on Justice Hill, a fab percentage. I would say like 12 to 15% off the top of my head.
I was going to say 20. Like, I think there's a real chance that they view him as like a strong part-time player. They could use him at the goal line. He was a good college prospect. I start to lose value in that when he hasn't really played through 4 years in the NFL or whatever, but like it's not nothing. He can catch passes. I'm going to say 20 to 25. Yeah.
That seems kind of high.
Yeah. I'm going to stick to like 50. I'll say 15 to 20. I think especially it's difficult for me to get too excited about him because Algier is available in just under 50%. It's like 46%. Gainwell is available in over 50%. And Kyren is available in like most leagues. So like there are strong alternatives. This is a fragile situation. 15 to 20. You've scaled me back.
That is the problem. It's just that we know Justice Hill is not like a 1-for-1 solution to the J.K. Dobbins problem, and that's fairly rare.
Rebuilding J.K. in the aggregate.
Yeah, exactly. It's fairly rare for there to be 1-for-1s, but over the next 5 to 6 weeks, there are gonna be some 1-for-1 shots at running back, like a guy who's coming in to get like 70% of the snaps.
I mean, I think Deion Jackson. I didn't even mention Deion Jackson. His situation is a little weird because Zach Moss didn't play and then Evan Hull gets hurt. But both of those things could hold true next week. He legitimately is a 1-for-1 replacement of the backfield that was going to be there. He got like 70% of the snaps, all the carries, bunch of targets. I don't know how long it lasts, but like we also don't know how long it lasts with Justice Hill. Like they could eventually just turn the lever and say, Gus Edwards giving us more of what we want. Like honestly, the Colts just don't even have that option until Zach Moss returns or until Jonathan Taylor obviously returns. So yeah, there are enough good alternatives that I'm not sure I see like the really high-end outcome with Justice Hill. He's not going to dominate all the carries, but I see the floor. Like it's Melvin Gordon 10 touches season is the floor.
Someone in Tyler Glidden's league. Sorry, Tyler, I don't know how to say your last name. Christian Watson's drop. This is obviously kind of a close to an empty the clip situation, even though Christian Watson is so injury prone. He really wants that Will Fuller career trajectory. Like, wants it bad.
Did you come up with that comp like a few days?
That was me.
It was when he got officially ruled out or something like that. That
Friday afternoon.
So hard.
Tweeted it from my SUV in a parking lot and had to get out in the world. And I sent that one out because Christian Watson really is hardcore on the Will Fuller career trajectory, but there's so much upside. And now that we've seen a game against a very bad Bears defense, we were debating this in the internal Slack, very bad Bears defense, but you made the good point. I make this point frequently too. The bare minimum you want your players to do is have good games and good spots. Jordan Love did that. So we witnessed the Packers offense be competent. I would say you got to 75 to 80% of your fab probably on Christian Watson.
I was going to say 70, 75. You're getting, assuming he plays in 2 weeks, not even this week. Like you're getting still the vast majority of the season of what was he, like a 4th, 5th round pick? If we saw what we saw from Kyren Williams, who I think is the best fab pickup, he would be going like the 6th or 7th round, right? Like you cannot find Christian Watson at any point really on the waiver wire, except your league apparently. So yeah, rip that.
Here we got one from Lindorphins, a good Twitter user. What is the 1 to 10 worry level on Rachaad and Akers? We got pretty high on Akers early. We'll focus on the Rachaad White and the Bucs situation here because I'd say our worry level for Cam Akers is like what, 8 or 9. Like
It's like it's at this point, if you have him, and I drafted him some, not a lot, but I on the teams that I do have him, like you're scrolling through the best ball app and you're like, how's this team doing? You see Cam Akers and you're not worried, you're resigned. You've probably just lost. It's a feeling of resignation. He's not getting passing down work. He's not dominating goal line work. He doesn't look like he's got the juice. Like no resignation. Or a 10, either a 10 or resignation.
And so we spend a lot of Monday morning kind of going through like the usage tweets, like the usage articles. And one that kept popping up Monday morning was how many yards Rachaad White left on the field. And I think via the official next gen stats, like his yards under expected, I think were the second highest in the league after Cam Akers, I believe. It's a little more uncertain. Sean Tucker isn't quite as like immediately foreboding as Kyren Williams. I feel like it's just like it's a different situation. I mean, I was worried about Rachaad White all summer. I worried less when like the competition did not really fully materialize during the summer. It was always unclear how big of a push Sean Tucker was actually making. But I was horribly inefficient as a rookie, was then horribly inefficient in an upset victory yesterday against the Vikings. What would you say the concern level 1 to 10 is for Rachaad White?
More like a 4 to 5 because his role was strong. Like he was top 10 in snaps in week 1. He got the ball a ton. He just didn't do much with it. But it's not the Akers thing where he's inefficient, someone looks better than him, and they reward them with a ton of routes, with goal line work, something like that. We could work towards that. Like Sean Tucker was an interesting prospect who mostly it appears as though fell undrafted because of a medical concern that doesn't exist any longer. So he's definitely a concern. But like it's an order of magnitude lower than Akers, where we've already seen the flippening has happened with Akers, whereas we are still waiting for it, and it feels very possible, but we're still waiting for it with Rachaad. And not only are we waiting for it, we're like waiting for any sign of it. Like I said, he was top 10 in snap share in week 1, got good usage, just didn't do anything with it. That tells me that he's got a long leash. It will shorten as he continues to not look great. But we have time to work. We have time for him to break a long run and put more space again between him and Sean Tucker. So 4 or 5. Yeah, 4, 5, whatever. There. 4.5. Final answer.
Someone praised my shirt. Thank you, by the way. I like the shirt a lot.
I like it.
I have to go to a neighborhood night out after this. So I was trying to look kind of festive. Trying to look festive also for the. So this guy's pushing back on like our kind of tossed off comment that Melvin Gordon could end up leading the backfield this weekend. My counter take to that is, they released him because they had the early down option. They didn't want Melvin Gordon to be the third down guy, even though Melvin Gordon has like a third down track record. They clearly decided they wanted Justice Hill to get like the first crack at that role, but we don't really know how serious they are about Justice Hill getting early down work despite the goal line carries on Sunday. So I just wouldn't be shocked if Melvin Gordon, despite the disrespect of getting cut, still ended up maybe leading in raw touches. I mean, do you agree with that though? I mean, what are the odds Melvin Gordon actually leads the Ravens backfield? Like 20%? Is that too high? Is that too low?
I was going to say 20. It's like 60, probably 50, 30, 20 Justice Gus, maybe even 60, 25, 15 or something like that. Justice is a pretty good bet, but like, do we not remember the Tyson Williams experience where we had like the one most heavenly game where he gets all of the touches or whatever, and we're like, we unload the fab clip, we go all in. He got summer hype, he's getting work, and then within like I think they literally cut him like 6 weeks later.
They did. I don't know what they have weird. They're kind of underrated for their weird running back.
Squirrely. Usage. I mean, they had didn't they have a Le'Veon Bell stint? Did they?
Oh my gosh, they did. I believe.
Did they have a Todd Gurley stint? I feel vaguely that.
I think Todd Gurley worked out for them. I don't believe
Okay.
he ever played for them. I believe he like kept working out for them too. I'm looking at.
He-
Yeah, he's only made
just using their
appearances.
gym.
He's only made appearances for 2 franchises, the Rams and the Falcons. Hey, by the way, one of the last St. Louis Rams, one of our final draft picks. We love you.
Also,
Todd.
Justice Hill is a special teamer. He plays like a decent amount on special teams, and Melvin does not. And like you cut Melvin specifically because you know you can throw him on the practice squad at that point. Like, and you can bring him up whenever you want.
Do you, off the top of your head, don't look it up, do you remember the last year that Todd Gurley received a touch in the NFL was?
I mean, I think it had to be for the Falcons, 2019.
No, I was hoping you were saying 2021, or it was 2020, which Steve's does seem shockingly long ago to me.
That's a very 2020 thing to happen. Is
it was
Todd Gurley getting touches?
Flew under the radar a bit that year.
Man,
there was a lot.
What a wild career arc.
Well, there was a lot going on in 2020. We missed Todd Gurley's final career appearance. Hunter, I believe, has asked this question twice. Zay Flowers, Jackson Smith and Jigba, or Puka Nacua. Yeah, I mean, because Zay Flowers, well, I think he had a 47% target share, monstrous. By far the best day of the first round wide receivers. And well, I think it was 9 catches for 78 yards, but he actually lost 9 yards on his final 2 catches. His stat line would have actually looked better without the final 2 catches. I think he got a 6-yard loss and a 3-yard loss. So he would have been like 7 in the 80s without those 2. How would you rank Hunter, by the way, with the Saquon Barkley avatar? We were very sorry about what happened on Sunday Night Football on NBC, Hunter. But Zay, JSN, or Puka?
I'm ironically not going with the one who did the best in week 1, Puka, because I still want to use my priors as an anchor. Puka moved his prior meaningfully, very, very meaningfully, but he has to move it from being undrafted in most leagues to JSN, who got steamed to like the 5th, 6th type of round before he got hurt, right? And then that turned out to really not be a big deal. He played in week 1, was full practice all week. So I think I still go JSN because I was most confident in him as a prospect by a pretty considerable margin. And you could swing me on Zay though. I think either of those is fine.
I think I'm honest. I'm going to react hard to week 1. And I'm going to say Zay first.
Okay. That's
because
fine.
I kind of thought this was going to happen with Zay Flowers. I mean, how many more times do we need to see Rachaad Bateman like create red flags? I mean, Odell Beckham over 30 coming off a 2nd or 3rd torn ACL. That was always very – I kind of believed in Zay, like at least being the most targeted, especially because it's an offense that has kind of always been comfortable with that. Lamar Jackson is comfortable with those kind of targets. It's what Zay like excelled at Boston College, where they had to get really creative to get him the ball because of their lack of offensive talent. It just felt like kind of a sensible way to begin his career. I will put Puka ahead of JSN just because it's so tricky to 15 targets, man. I just don't think you can fake 15 targets. Like,
I get it. No. He's legit. He was 100% legit. I just think JSN was like one of the better.
It's the same problem for JSN. He's such a good prospect, but he's behind like 2 almost all-pro level receivers. DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett are probably just below all-pro, but like I just still don't know where like the target share is supposed to come from. And I worried about Geno regression. Then we got a horror show Seahawks passing performance yesterday. I just don't know where the target share is supposed to come from. As talented as he is, I still wish he had ended up in a different offense, JSN.
Me too.
Because they're just too good. Lockett and DK Metcalf are too good. Darrell Hughes hitting on kind of one of the hot button ones. Joshua Kelly almost to a snaps and touches standstill with Austin Eckler. Just start giving a monologue on this Chargers backfield because there was weird stuff afoot. I have no idea why they were so intent on establishing it yesterday, by the way. I mean, it almost worked.
Well, I was going to say part of it was that it was working. I mean, outside of the fact they lost, what they literally put up 30, was it 34?
34 points. You would typically win with 34 points.
It worked. You would typically win. Yeah, but they're the Chargers. You would typically win with 34 points. And if it's working successfully, I'm not going to knock them really much at all. Like if it works and works well, also like Justin Herbert's ADOT was 4 point something. Horrific stuff. Also, he was like 10th in EPA per play. So it was, they probably could have boosted him to like a few more passing yards and better in terms of generating points if they move the ball downfield. but it's not a horrific knock to say they put a lot of points on the board. I'm going to give them a pass for what they did, as long as they showed the ability to adapt when that thing doesn't work. I'm going to at least hold out hope and not assume the worst of them yet. And that is to say that they were literally the run heaviest team on neutral situations.
They were.
That will not hold. I would be stunned if a team that has sort of that Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf level of duo, and then the first round receiver, and then pays Justin Herbert an ungodly amount of money. I would be shocked if that team all of a sudden becomes this run focused, gotta win games, low scoring, like stylistically win low scoring games. That's not going to happen. Also, Austin Eckler left with a limp for a little bit, which got Josh Kelly a touchdown that I needed Austin Eckler to get. Thanks. That felt great. No, he did. He left for like a drive and a quarter or something like that. So I don't think this holds. I do think I almost think for sure they want to give Austin Eckler a bit more of a breather, but they do not want to split him 50-50.
No. And we know that they've been searching for this mythical 1B back for so long. Seriously, 2 or 3 years at this point. I just don't know why this time it would count with Joshua Kelly. I don't know what would be different with Joshua Kelly, unless like the Chargers blocking is just like elite all of a sudden this year, their run blocking. I just don't know why it would count all of a sudden with Joshua Kelly. And I think he's like a total replacement level NFL. But he is the 1B back, clearly. He did at least win that competition outright.
100%.
Or we're never like quite sure what's going on with that situation by Sebastian trying to, sure, it was working. That doesn't mean they should do it. You should never run the ball. No, it was working a lot. It was very interesting. But I agree with you. That approach felt like a one-off from the Chargers. There's a lot of questions here. This is an interesting one because the one game that hasn't happened yet, happening in about 2 hours, apparently in like mutter conditions. It looks like to me quite rainy at MetLife.
Yeah, they had to storm evac or shelter everyone.
They had to Midwest it. They shelter in place when one
Midwest.
One of those big old thunderstorms rolls through. But we've seen every team play but the Jets and Bills. What are the thoughts on the Jets back? We got, kind of one of those ominous, I believe you had to blurb it up, weekend reports. Like, Brees is less ready. What kind of report we've been waiting for all summer? Like, he's less ready than we thought. And
no, I didn't take it as negative Brees as much as we paid Dalvin a decent amount of money and he's been good in the past. We're going to treat it as such because we're going to be cautious with Brees, which that doesn't, of course you will say that no matter what. To me, it was more pro Dalvin than anti Brees. Two sides of a similar adjacent coin though. I think tonight we are going to see probably a 60-40 split of just those two, for the touches. I guess probably realistically it's more 50-35 and 15 to, I assume, Michael Carter or whoever. I think it is a Dalvin Cook heavily favored split. And unfortunately, because I drafted a lot of Brees, the report, it was probably from Ian Rappaport, so apologies if it's not, but let's assume it was that we are going to be extremely cautious and patient with Brees for the start of the season. And it wasn't week one. It was the start of the season. And Dalvin Cook is going to get the bulk of the carries for the early part of the season. This wasn't a week one specific plan. We'll see if it holds when Dalvin Cook goes out and doesn't do well. And then Brees breaks 2 long runs. But then if Dalvin does do well, the flip side of that is let's just keep pushing Brees off because we have that luxury. I think what we saw from Dalvin's efficiency last year makes me think they won't have that luxury. But tonight, I ranked Brees extremely low. He's not startable for me tonight. So
I just felt like forever we were going to get that surprise. Yeah, I know we claimed he was healthy all summer, but he's actually not that healthy still, Brees Hall.
I didn't take this as that.
I mean, I'm talking about protecting the player. I don't know. It seemed kind of like that to me. But we're going to finally get a data point. This has been one of those situations where we have needed a real life data point so hard. We can't debate the situation anymore without some actual real life touches, and we're going to get them. One might be run friendly conditions on Monday evening. Zach Woolman wants to know if we're selling high on Mike Evans. In this case, selling high being he scored a touchdown. I think he did have 6 catches, but cash in Mike Evans after one good game. Is 6 for 66 and a touchdown his ceiling, Kyle? Or do we see any reasons for legitimate hope yesterday? I'm not quite sure if we did.
I mean, he had pretty strong target and air yard share numbers, and he literally has 7 or is it now 8 straight 1,000-yard seasons. I think the sell high is is someone willing to see what is happening and be I'm gonna give you this like high-end wide receiver too. I'm gonna give you Metcalf for him or whatever. Like, no, I don't think this meaningfully changed the value you can get in return for him. This to me was like give or take the expectation. So I'm guessing this didn't move the needle in terms of his trade value in the slightest.
No.
Trust Baker, I don't know about Trust Baker, but know that like they're gonna throw at a decent clip. Mike Evans is very talented. And like I thought his ADP and maybe even Godwin's a little bit was just generally too low because we know they're getting like an insane amount of this team's targets. We know they're pretty good. That's a good enough reason to have these players on your roster. I don't think this is going to be some sort of value swoon that we get and you can swindle your leads for it.
Is there like any chance you could get a top 20 running back for Mike Evans? I feel like no, right?
No.
And I think if you're flipping him too, I think like flip Mike Evans, it has to be something like really risky, like where you need to like take the chance of like mockery and like you have to like trade him for like Puka Nacua or something. I feel like that's the only way you can maybe win a Mike Evans trade is like if you bet on like a wild upside outcome because people aren't just going to give you proven production. The brand is so tainted that like, I feel like you'd have to make a really wild upside gamble in a Mike Evans trade. I feel like there's no way to win a Mike Evans trade right now. That's kind of what I'm saying. You've got a different question on the screen here. AJ Dillon, Tyler Algier, or B-Rob, as he is known?
So I had this one because we should probably talk about the Algier situation. AJ Dillon, AJ Dillon could be very interesting because we have Aaron Jones, maybe health situation. I don't know what it is yet. But that's a wait and see. We will at least hopefully get some more information, at least maybe a little bit more before your waivers run. But Algier,
I've got a counter take for when you're done, by the way.
Okay. Well, for context, both you and I were adamant that you spend a top 10 pick on Bijan and your whole identity is running the football. And Bijan's a great runner of said football. Dude is ripping 22 carries out of the gate. Algier is good, but mothballed by the third quarter. And Denny Carter, our intelligent colleague who's just firing off correct takes in this final month of the summer, unfortunately.
He has been on a heater. He's wrong about a few things, but
yeah, not enough. We gotta get his ego in check. Was pretty confident and correct in that it would be a committee. Bijan would get good usage in that he would be a strong passing game weapon. And he was right about that. That's where the touchdown even came from. He was right about that. There was no doubt that in week one, he was right about that. Give me the counterpoint.
It's just week one. So first off, the low point for Bijan is 16 touches. I mean, it's still there has been like kind of like overestimating just how dire this was for Bijan. Where before the game, I would have probably projected 18 to 22 touches. Like 16 is not a terrible outcome, and I'm guessing that. So first off, the game environment is just not going to usually be this good for the Falcons. They're facing a quarterback making his NFL debut, and it still took them a while to put the game away. And like Tyler Algier just kind of struck me as like the game controller, and that in games where they're not playing with a lead the entire game, which I think is going to be frequent, but they're going to have to rely more on like the home run ability of Bijan Robinson, like the field flipping ability of Bijan Robinson. Tyler Algier is a pretty good pure runner, but I think he's like we are controlling this game, like dictating the pace of play. I'm pretty sure Bijan Robinson could do that too, though. But I think the second this team is trailing and in less favorable game script with so little explosive play opportunity, I feel like with Desmond Ridder, they're going to end up relying on Bijan, like maybe not quite as heavily as we thought, but I think pretty close to heavily as we thought. And if this is kind of the low point for Bijan Robinson, I mean, this is pretty digestible. 33% target share. I really was not that alarmed by Bijan at the end of the day. And I just think this is more about the Falcons like seizing control of a game and then doing everything they could to not lose that game. And in their minds, that was controlling between the 20s with Tyler Algier and inside the 10-yard line.
Yeah, that's I would say that's like there are two levels of concern. One is that like I feel like part of what you're saying is like when they get to run fewer plays, we'll see more Bijan, but like that's not how the math would work out unless you're saying in tighter games, Bijan becomes his cut of the pie starts to increase, which makes sense. Like that's fine.
Yeah. That is what I just think that when they like when the outcome is uncertain, the outcome is pretty certain for most of the second half yesterday.
Agreed.
And even the first half, they're gonna be listen, we love you, Tyler, but we gotta see if Bijan can basically like Saquon this, can Jonathan Taylor this, like bust some 30, 40-yard runs.
I agree with that. I think to me, I'm still like very not anchored to my priors, but I think I even saw someone tweet out that like before the season, preseason as in pre-week 1, ADP is still a better predictor of like future fantasy points than any individual week or any collective amount of weeks up until week 4. Like that's when the data really starts to trump our priors. So for now, like you said, incredible target share, still raw volume a lot. The only other concern is the goal line work, which like that could be a problem that one was sticks with us for a while.
I don't have a counter take on that one. That was that was alarming. Daniel wants to know about DJ Moore. Retweet at every year of our existence since DJ Moore has been in the league. Is there any hope for DJ Moore in the Bears offense? 2 targets as the wide receiver 1 is scary. Fact check true. What do we make of the DJ Moore and Justin Fields fiasco against the Green Bay Packers?
I mean, Fields is still looking pretty hit or miss with more misses than you'd like to see. And DJ Moore didn't see a lot of targets. It's bad. I don't have a good. No. I think that I would bet, any amount of money you want that DJ Moore's season-long target share is higher than his week 1 target share. And that's the most amount of optimism I can offer you right now, because I don't think it'll be a good passing attack. I think when things are successful, it's going to happen on the ground most likely, because I don't think their avenue to passing success looks viable right now. So in the successful games, low volume. In the unsuccessful games, high, very poor quality volume. And we still need DJ Moore to get a more meaningful target share. It will happen, but does he jump to 30%? Like that's where you need him to be almost. I don't know if it happens. So
yeah, one game sample size, but Justin Fields he didn't look like he had made any progress as a passer, like still like processing too quickly. I feel like still tucking and running like a little too quickly. And it was mostly working when he ran still, but just didn't see any evidence of progress.
Yeah, with Fields, I feel like the offense last year skated by on him having the most exciting play of all 16 games every single week. And as good as he is, it's like the DFS thing, like, oh, there's no way Fields can get away with it again. He did get away with it again most weeks, but you can't get away with that all the time. And as soon as that element of the game just doesn't show up for whatever reason, like it's just hard to break 60-yard runs every week. That cannot be the engine of your offense. And that's most of what they had last year.
It's funny. They were kind of doing it in the preseason still too. That was kind of funny, where they hit I think 3 or 4 50-yard.
Yeah, it was tiny passing plays that would go 60 yards. And again, like big plays are good, but like you also need to have a high success rate where you're like getting reasonable gains, attainable gains more often than the defense wants you to.
We're just about to wrap up, actually. We've had multiple viewers that point out that now they are officially true, what's the word? They're concerned about Austin Eckler's week 2 status. The Chargers were dealing with an ankle injury. His practice status for this week is uncertain. He did play through the issue against the Dolphins.
He returned. He left I believe this was Daniel Popper, if I'm remembering his name correctly, from The Athletic, tweeted out that he limped off the field. I think he got checked out by trainers and came back in later in that game for the final few minutes. But could
have been an adrenaline special. Yeah.
Could
have been an adrenaline special, but even with the adrenaline, you can't usually play through a high ankle sprain. Mm-hmm. So if he was still playing in the game, it's probably not a high ankle sprain.
This could very well lend credence to the idea that it will actually be a split, though. I think it would be very understandable to say, Josh Kelly played well last week. He was all right, especially in the one spot start he had last year. He looked good in the past 2 years. He's been far better than he was, his first 2 years, man. He was just a plotter who could not get on the field. He was, I think, below replacement then. He's probably replacement at this point, right around there. Pass more. Don't only throw to Austin Eckler. You throw it to him on a screen on the outside, and he can walk out of bounds instead of getting hit by a 320-pound D tackle, and let Kelly take that stuff. And if he's efficient, it will be somewhat of a notable hit to Eckler, but from a team management perspective, this could actually lend credence to the idea that we will see fewer Austin Eckler touches and snaps in the coming weeks by design, and not even that he's getting older. He literally is hurt at this point.
Final question for the show. We're going to answer Office Depot, their question. PPR, AJ Brown and Shiga Okonkwo for Zay Flowers and Kyle Pitts. I have an answer to this one that I'm assuming you will agree with.
No, I don't think I will. Go ahead.
Well, no, on these 2 for 2s, the very first thing I always focus on is who is the best player in this deal. And no one in this deal even comes close to A.J. Brown's value. And I think the A.J. Brown side wins this absolutely going away.
I don't think it wins it going away.
It wins it going away, is my opinion.
I think Chig is like he'll be cuttable soon. Like
Chig will be cuttable soon, but it doesn't even matter. I don't even like the Chig's name doesn't even really register over here. I view this as A.J. Brown for Zay Flowers and Kyle Pitts. And that's a hard no.
I don't know if you knew this, but Kyle Pitts led all tight ends in the air yard share in week 1. I think he led all tight ends in yards per route in week 1 too.
Yeah, what a surprise.
Dude, you're probably right. Like maybe I should take the guy who scores fantasy points. Who knows?
Yeah. The guy who could finish as the wide receiver 1 overall. He's saying this is dynasty. Oh yeah, we kind of I ignored the dime.
AJ Brown's not old. I know he's in his 6th year, maybe it's his 5th year, but he came in the league like relatively young. But dynasty was part of it too. Like Flowers showing out it's 1 week, but showing out well. And Pitts has been both productive and efficient at many points throughout his career. It's just strange that none of that ever materializes to like a top 5 fantasy week. But
sorry, Mr. Depot, that I ignored the dynasty part. But I think even in dynasty,
I'm going to say I'll take Flowers Pitts dynasty.
Well, here, stop trying to make Pitts a thing. I mean, I'm just
dude, it's never happening.
The customer's always right.
Give up.
The customer is always right.
I'm not giving up.
We are always right. Check out Kyle's waiver wired com going up really early for us, man. Thanks for getting it out on Monday evenings. Really, really good stuff. A must read before you get in your waiver bids. Check out the podcast tomorrow with Denny Carter and I'll get to work on my rankings tomorrow. Kyle has 3 articles per week. He's going to get grinding on the articles. We'll be grinding on the blurbs. A lot of news. Unfortunately, a lot of injury situations coming out of week 1. Injuries have been, I feel like, been getting ever so quieter in the NFL the past years. This was a fairly heavy week 1 for injuries, but heading into week 1 was fairly heavy. So keep it locked to the blurb page for updates and everything, including Austin Eckler. But for Kyle Dvorchak, I'm Patrick Daugherty. Thanks for watching. Thank you for your questions. We will be back next Monday evening.